Hello and welcome to DDOCast episode 493, recorded live on Sunday, October 29th. I'm your host, Patrick. With me this week, we have returning Evilbeeker. Welcome back, sir.
Well, thank you for having me. Happy Halloween to everybody.
Yay, Halloween. It's fun, or if you prefer, Night Revels.
Yep.
This week's screenshot, Cindrus is the Night Reveler in our 339th DDO screenshot of the week. Thanks, Satirius, for sending in this week's screenshot. I think I pronounced that right. I gave it a good go. Another nice one. These are ones. It's always a nice time of year to take screenshots of the sky, in particular, because it looks so cool.
It is a cool one. And obviously she's dancing, so it was captured just perfectly. I like it.
And the red Reaper armor and the glowing eyes, very nice. We like to talk about Dungeons and Dragons online nearly every weekend. You can catch us through Twitch, YouTube, the DDO forums, or our website, DDOCast.com. DDOCast is hosted by Cyberairs, the awesome podcast hosting network. Shows are usually available within a few days of recording. The next show will probably be this Saturday. You can stay updated by following us on our social media pages or our website, DDOCast.com, with our calendar. Apologies for last week. I didn't get timestamps into the show notes. Last week was a week. And it takes that process takes just enough time that sometimes it's just not. I could wait 3 days when I have time to do that, or I could just publish the show, which is what happened last week. Should have timestamps back this week though. On the podcast this week, actually before I do that, next show the plan is to be talking with Jerry and Strimtom, and we're going to talk about streaming and recording videos and kind of all that stuff, and kind of go a little bit more in depth. We've talked about it before. We're going to kind of dedicate a whole topic, a whole discussion to it. So it's kind of a growing thing, and we'll give you guys some tips and tools to mix videos and make them and post them and all that kind of fun stuff. And we got 3 really experienced people that do that a lot. Them more so than me, I think. So that'll be great. This week, we've got a little bit of news. We got a new patch. We got some other fun stuff to talk about. And our discussion this week is going to be on leveling. So we're continuing our discussion on leveling. We're at levels 13 to 15, which is fun. And again, just to kind of refresh, especially for those who are kind of picking this up in the middle, we're talking about leveling in terms of the quests. And I keep trying to explain this every time we do this to at least the people that are new for doing the show. But basically, we're focusing on the quests, not so much the character, if that makes sense. So this week we're at levels 13 to 15. So these are the quests that are normal, 13 to 15. And I think Evilbeeker, why don't you just give us? We were kind of talking about this before the show a little bit. What kind of sticks out to you about levels 13 to 15?
Well, 13 to 15 is where you start getting into the really fun quest sagas. So you have Giant Hold, you have Attack on Stormreach, you have is that Necro 3?
4.
I believe 4. Okay,
3 is level 11.
Gotcha. And my group doesn't do Necro 4 very often, but the big ones for us is Giant Hold, because these are some of the more classic D&D like quests in the game, and there's a wide variety. No 2 of them are the same. And now that you got Reaper, you can do them on higher difficulty. There's a ton of XP. And when you start doing the sagas, there's even more rewards. So you got additional XP you can get. You can get a portable hole. All kinds of really cool things that come out of those quest chains.
Yeah, it's definitely, you go through these and there's, let's see, 1, 2 standalone quests. Let's see, are there any more?
There's the first of the Tethymir ones. Am I pronouncing that right? Tethymar, yeah. That one's in here, mixed in here as well too.
There's a couple ones that are. The other thing that you have to. This is where things get really interesting too, because from a big picture perspective, I think it's worth thinking about what is your leveling plan as a whole and how far are you going. If you're going 1 to 20 and then reincarnating and just doing a racial life or a heroic past life or something like that, it doesn't really matter what you do. However, if you're going from levels 20 to 30, how many of these do you want to save for that time frame? Because most if not all of these quests, well, most, there's a few that aren't, are also available in legendary versions. Which means if you do them on heroic, you'll get your first time completion bonus in heroic. You'll still get first time for each difficulty. So if you do it on epic elite or reaper, you'll still get the first time bonus, but you won't get a bravery bonus. So that can impact how you're planning on doing this. I've said before, I tend to try to save most of those for the epic or legendary versions, simply because there's fewer options up there. Having said that, this level range gives me problems for following that because almost all of the quests have that to be true.
Right.
So there's a little bit of a give and take there, which can be a little bit of a trick to deal with. There are some that are not, but a lot of them are. Like Giant Hold, Orchard, some of the other ones we'll talk about. So it's just something to kind of keep in mind. Now, having said that, I think that applies less if you're just going to go like 1 to 30 and reincarnate. If you're going to like go to 1 to 30 to 20 to 30 to 20 to 30 and kind of keep doing that, and you want to have a lot of options for those first time bonuses, it starts to play a little bit more. It's something to consider. Well, it's not necessarily a big deal. I wouldn't lose sleep over it, but something to think about.
Well, one thing that we did the first time around, and we did notice that when we did an epic run with some of our characters, and we actually supplemented it with the epic Giant Hold Slayers, because there's a ton of XP in not to jump off of our levels a little bit, but there's a ton of XP to be had there as well. So to be honest, we enjoy the heroic version a lot because you can go from 13 to 15 or 16 pretty quick by including those quests. I mean, you can just zoom through those levels pretty darn fast.
And there's a lot of, most people when you're talking about, we're getting a little off topic here, but most people when you're talking about like that epic reincarnating and leveling thing is there's the dailies, right? So you're probably going to be supplementing that a lot. So it's not necessarily a big deal.
Right.
But it is something that some people consider. Maybe you keep one chain I'll actually talk about this. Keep one chain, couple chains for up in Legendary and Epics, and the other chains you used down here. With that, let's so we're kind of started with Giant Holds. Kind of talk a little bit more about Giant Hold because there's essentially 9. There's 3 sets of 3 quests, and then the 2 capstones, which are all pretty darn popular. Even Crucible, which is a little bit longer, a little bit more, shall we say, technical. There's more puzzles and there's a maze, a puzzle, well, a couple puzzles. Probably, if I might go out on a limb here, probably the most misunderstood and hacked puzzle in the game.
Sure.
The one of the Trial of Instinct.
Yeah, and it's the one that people tend to skip on the saga. So if you're a VIP, you can skip one, and people tend to skip that quest for that reason.
But if you know what you're doing, I mean, the swim is also can be pretty brutal if you're not very good at it, especially if you're doing it on higher levels and the traps really start to hurt a little bit more. But it is, it is a pretty popular area. There's a lot of quests. You don't necessarily need to do them all, but it's pretty easy too. And I would say of the ones you're probably going to do Giant Hold in heroics. It's an older pack, and as we've kind of talked about as we've gone through these, the older quests tend to be easier, at least in terms of how hard things hit and difficulty and number of mobs. There's some other things that make them a little bit harder, like we talked about. It's the older days, there was less of a forgiveness by the devs for not bringing a rogue, for example.
Sure.
Whereas in today's world, when they design quests, there's certainly, you can tell there's more of a mind of, well, maybe they don't have a rogue, maybe they're soloing, so let's make it so that they don't necessarily need those things. There might be a penalty, but it's not going to be like really annoying to get through.
Right.
Case in point, the Crucible and the Swim and the Trial of Agility. Sure, you can do them without evasion, but it's a lot easier to do it with evasion.
Yeah, absolutely.
So, and there's also the raid, Reaver's Fate. I tend to see people not really do the raid, mostly because you don't have to, but it's an interesting raid in that the mechanics of the raid are such that you actively don't kill the boss until a certain time frame. So the staying alive part is a little bit more of what's going on compared to the DPS part, at least for the beginning.
Right.
I tend to see people not do Reaver's Fate. And I don't know if it's because of those mechanics in the raid or because they just can't be bothered to find another couple people to run it, or.
And that's where that's our problem. So we used to do it in the early days. We had a bigger group, but now we usually just skip it and move on to whatever's next.
Yeah, and there's so many options. There's a lot of options in these level ranges. So,
I mean, there's cool treasure in the raid. Don't think it isn't a fun raid to do with good rewards. It's just sometimes it just doesn't work out.
I still like the raid. It's a really solid raid. It's aged well. The loot, maybe has not aged as well, but there's still some unique things that you can get in there.
Mm-hmm.
So there's a lot of stuff going there. And of course, the Reaver's Fate. So the Reaver's Fate is one that you can't technically do in Epics. You don't have to worry about doing it because its Epic version is a completely different quest. That's probably a better way of saying it. So you don't have that concern there. But all the rest of the ones do have an Epic version. And just so we can mention too, like, you don't have to be flagged for Tor to run it. You just have to have someone who can open it. You won't get flagged for Reaver's Fate, but you can still go in and get the XP, which is really kind of what we're talking about. So those ones are all pretty easy, and there's some of those are level 13, some of them are level 14. The walk-ups are 13. The flaggers are 14. And then the Crucible, Crucible used to be the one that you needed to flag for, and then they changed that to Cabal for 1. Again, to make things more accessible for people, because Crucible was, it's comes from a time where it was a little bit harder to get through some things if you didn't have the right kind of characters.
And there's people that don't like the puzzle quests. I mean, flat out.
Sure.
I mean, and because of that quest gets a bad rep.
I don't think it's that big of a puzzle quest, though.
No, but it has a puzzle in it, so people complain.
It has a maze and 2 puzzles and 2 agility trials. So, use all the skills. In any case, let's talk about Assault on Stormreach Part 2, which is Assault on Summerfield, Blockade Buster, and Siegebreaker, and Undermine.
Undermine.
Was the other one. So there's a nice thing about this one compared to Part 1 in that you don't have to run them in order, which is fantastic. Part 1, you have to run them in sequence. If you haven't run them in sequence, you can't run the next one because of how the mechanics work for how you get into the quest, which is really annoying. Part 2, you don't have the problem. You can even run Siegebreaker without having run the other ones as long as someone's flagged for it.
Right.
I would say these are must-runs in my book. One, they're not terribly difficult. I kind of actually like them. Blockade Buster is probably the most difficult one, and that has more to do with the fact that people tend to run around without killing stuff.
You get separated really quick. So people run in a door thinking that, somebody's right behind me, but then all of a sudden your loading screen takes a little longer, and by the time you get in there, your party's dead.
Well, and when you go underneath the ships, if you're trying to kill stuff, and you aggro all the stuff that's downstairs all at the same time, you're starting to get alerts. There's a bunch of champions, and there's casters, and you get a Reaper, and you log in, and there's a whole bunch of stuff in your face, and there's no room to maneuver.
And
really what it comes down to.
And you hit it right on the head there. Since the addition of champions and Reapers, this is actually a tougher quest because you never know what's on the other side of that door or that portal or whatever. and you can get smoked pretty quick in this quest if you're not careful and stick together.
It'd be kind of fun though. Um,
It is great. You get to blow something up. That's awesome. Anytime you get to blow something up in a quest, I like it.
Yeah. So, but again, these are all they give Coin Lord favor, which is fantastic. Giant holes are Agents of Arganessen, which is another good one. But it pales in comparison to Coin Lords.
Yeah, and actually that's a really great point. So a lot of people, maybe a lot of people is a bad word. I know a couple of people that don't like to do iconics because you start at a level 15 with 3 inventory slots. If you do these quests, you can get your 4th inventory slot really quick, and then it's not such a big deal. They don't like going back and cranking out the old Coin Lord quests for favor, just so they can get their extra inventory slot. That's what makes these quests really desirable if you're running an iconic.
And pro tip: if you do an iconic, don't take level 15. Stop at level 14, and then run Stormreach Part 1 on Elite or Reaper, and you'll get first time bravery bonus. Take level 15 and then run Part 2.
Ah, that I didn't know.
Yeah, you don't actually have to take level 15. You have to get to like level 14, I think, before you can actually get XP. But it will let you bank level 15. It won't give you the gear, so you'll have to have some gear to do that. But...
Yeah. And a lot of people there's some people that take the package if you're just testing it out too.
Yeah. In any case, so that's, but yeah, I would say you're gonna want to run Stormreach, especially even on iconic. I like doing that. And again, this comes back to there's no epic version, and the XP is great.
Yeah.
Especially Siegebreaker. Siegebreaker is one that I think is worth. It's one of those ones that it can be worth doing it on Reaper, Elite, Hard, Normal, if you've got the solid group for it, because it's got a lot of optionals in it. You can cruise through it pretty fast, and it gives really great XP, so you can get a fair chunk of change. And if you really, really want to save all these quests for later, you can make some stuff up in that vein too. So
yeah, and Siegebreaker, it does have kind of a difficult ending, so you just gotta take a look at the wiki before you do it, because you can get stuck in that ending for quite a long time if you don't know what you're doing.
Yeah, that puzzle is not as intuitive as most puzzles. I mean, you can kind of figure out what goes on pretty quick if you're paying attention, right. But you still have to. It's a spatially more difficult puzzle,
right?
Because of how it's organized.
And you really need a rogue for that one, because if you don't, you're going to end up blowing yourself up left and right.
You can't actually kite the mobs through them.
You can flip
the switches, but it's not easy.
No. And if you go in there with hirelings, you got to park them in the corner. Otherwise, they'll run over the exploding traps all the time.
And then the other Undermine, of course, is the other one, which, I mean, they give you explosives. What's not to like?
We love that part. The part where you gotta use the explosives to clear the path to get through that little cavey thing with all the mines. We love that part because we just take bets on who's going to die the most.
This is really fun when you're playing permadeath and actively trying to blow each other up.
I think I remember you guys doing that.
Yeah, that was a lot of fun.
Yeah. But it can be frustrating, but you got to take it with a grain of salt. And it is the one. I think this was the first quest where a boulder could roll over you, because the first time I saw that coming down the hill, I'm like, oh my god, there's a boulder coming. So that was kind of cool.
I have successfully blown up that boulder with a mine twice.
Oh, we should probably try that next time we go through it.
It's tricky. The last time I did it, it was kind of just a Hail Mary pass, because I was way at the bottom, and I knew they had activated it, and I was on a character that had nothing to throw at the boulder, so I just planted a mine where I was, and this seems like the right spot, and I actually got it.
Yeah.
It was the same reason I did the first time, although I kind of planned that one a little bit more. Okay, also level 13, the Archon's Trial series. So this would be Archon's Trial, Devil's Details, and Demon Assault. These are ones that I am a huge proponent of saving for Legendary. and there's a couple reasons for that. Now, I haven't run it since they made the change with the Abishai, which was kind of a big thing.
Right.
But the Abishai in here are brutal, or they
They
were.
are.
I
They
think they're
are
a lot
tough.
better now.
Yeah. And when we first did this quest, we actually went in on an over level, and we still had a hard time with the Abishai. I mean, they were just terrible to kill.
The level you're at, the mob selection, are just not overly conducive for level 13 or 13 to 15, depending on what you're running and how you're running things. But they are, and these are newer quests, so again, they're a little more challenging than some of the other ones based on that mob selection and how many there are and that kind of stuff. Yeah. So I prefer to leave these ones for legendary.
Yeah, and a couple of them, like the Archon's Trial, where you got to go through that lightning room. That's a tricky one too. You can definitely tell that they took a couple of new kind of mechanics and worked them into this quest chain that made them a little bit on the more difficult side.
Yeah, so those are ones that I prefer to leave for later. And really, between Giant Hold and Stormreach, you'll be fine. You may be playing a little bit of catch up from like the level 10 to 12 range can be hard, so sometimes you're playing a little bit of catch up. Usually the way that I kind of approach that is I kind of like to do framework on, like framework is another quest that I'll do on Reaper, Elite, Hard, Normal, because it's if you got the right group, and especially like Hard and Normal are pretty easy for me to solo. Elite and Reaper can get a little hairy, depending on what I'm running.
That end fight it can be really bad if you charge in there and there's extra champions.
You get everything, yeah. But Siegebreaker is another one that you can kind of farm pretty easily. And even Blockade Buster, to a certain extent, is not too bad to farm. So that's how I kind of tend to catch up a little bit, as it were, or to try to save as much of Giant Hold as I can. But
yeah, and one other thing about Siegebreaker, if you've never done that quest before, try to rein in your buddies that like to hit exploding barrels, because there's one part in there, or don't, and watch them die real quick. Yeah, there's a couple of huge explosions in there where you can pretty much get wiped out in a heartbeat if you're not careful.
So moving into the 14 range, I didn't skip Memoirs of Illusionary Larcener. Memoirs is another one that I kind of, I could take it or leave it for 13, for doing it in Heroic or doing it in Legendary.
Same here.
Pretty short. I don't feel like you're leaving too much off the table if you don't save it. And who wouldn't like to get a Heroic Reaper? I can't remember the name of the circlet thing. The one that gives you all the spell all the spell power and.
Let's see here. The Pansavic.
Yeah, that sounds right.
Yeah, it's got some good stuff, and this is another quest where you can get some of the drop loot, name drop loot. Has a green slot in it, and it's not bad.
No, a lot of loot's pretty good, depending on what else you have. It's a good quest to run if you don't have a lot of gear, because you're probably going to get something, especially running it on higher difficulties. It is, again, it's a newer quest, so it's a little bit more challenging, but it's not too bad. The mob selection is fairly conducive to it and easier to run than, say, Devils and Abishai and stuff like that. So
right. And the other thing, I'd like to get a shout out for one more 13 quest, and that's Mired and Kobolds. This is probably the first time, unless you've done Von, that you're going to see a dragon. Okay, and not only one dragon, but two dragons. So if you want to stick around for the extra chests and the chance to get a scale, which when this quest first came out was a bigger deal than it is probably now.
Probably.
But it's a fun quest if you're a tank or a caster to kind of test your metal in, especially in the final fight.
Yeah, this is another one that I liked. Again, it only has a heroic version, so it gets higher on the priority list for me. So I'll try to run that pretty quick. But yeah, it's a fun quest. You can get a lot of champion chests in this one too, because there's a lot of named kobolds, which can ramp up the difficulty if you get a lot of champions.
Yeah. If you're not careful, you gotta be prepared for this one for sure.
almost took a screenshot where I did this with the Loveland group that I've kind of gone in and out of. And I think that we had like 5 champion chests on top of, like, right in the same little area, plus like 2 or 3 stacks of remnants. It was kind of ridiculous. Yeah, so that's a good one. And I also love that one that says, like, hey, we killed the dragon, and there's some chests that are like, oh, we're not done yet.
And if you can catch it, there's a great visual of the dragon swooping in. Yeah. So that for a big Dungeons and Dragons nerd, that's pretty cool.
Okay, so level 14. We talked about the giant hold once. Let's see, where should we start? Let's start with Multitude of Menace in that series. So this will be Multitude of Menace, Subversion, Tavern Brawl, Grim and Barrett.
Yep.
Which is actually it's the sequel to Archon's Trials. They do actually tie in together, and then that goes into the Heroic Shroud as well. This is another one that I prefer to wait for Legendary. Again, it mostly has to do with other options of what I'm used to. Like, I'm not used to running them on Heroic because they came out long after I kind of already figured out how I like to run through Heroics. But also the mob selection and the difficulty, I find, tends to be more difficult at this level.
Right. You can run this quest if you look at the loot, the named loot. If you're looking for something specific here, then we would run this quest. If not, then we would kind of skip it. However, now that knife fighting's a big thing, you got the slice dagger is in here, and if you're a sword and border, the demonic slab is not a bad tower shield to have. Oh, slice and dice are in this quest.
Slice and dice. Yeah. So there's some good loot in there. There's the quiver. There's a lot of good loot. It just tends to be something that I tend to. I just don't tend to run it on heroic, and the people that I run with tend not to do it. And I think a large part of that is the mob selection. They're a little harder than the other things like Giant Hold.
Right.
At this level, the other big thing to run would be Orchard, which, I've always enjoyed. Clearly, by far, the more fun of the Necro chains. And there's some options here. Vol has often been one that people tend to farm and do Reaper, Elite, Hard, Normal kind of a thing because it can be really quick. You can just cruise through that. The one thing we should probably mention is can be an area where it can be really helpful to have friends. I think the heroic version of Fleshmakers, you still have those runes are still timed. In Epic, they're not. So you kind of need a second person for that one.
Yeah, and we've had trouble with that quest on more than one occasion, and I don't know. We kind of either skip it or we'll try it once if we get it fine. If it's taking too long, we'll just bail. So it's not that these aren't great quests, because they are. We do Vol, and what's the other one I'm thinking of? The one in the tree.
Ghost of Perdition.
Yeah, Ghost of Perdition. Yep, oh, there it is. We'll run those quests for sure, but we don't do the whole chain.
Yeah, and Inferno is not always a popular quest. It's, if you know what you're doing, it's a pretty easy quest. If you don't know where to go, you can get lost very, very quickly.
Right.
But they are good quests. And again, they've got heroic and legendary versions. I tend to err on the side of doing Giant Hold on heroic if I'm going to do one of these on heroic. Mostly because a big part of that is because of the loot. Because the epic version loot, there's nothing that I'm really looking for. It's all pretty decent. But the Orchard epic loot, there was a huge bump in quality of loot at that time.
Okay.
So I really like the epic Orchard loot is really good. So if you're gonna pick one of those to run in heroic and one to run in epic, I would save the Orchard for Epic, just because of how much better the loot is compared to what else you can run at that in that level range. So that's kind of an option.
Yeah.
The other one at level 14 is Tower of Frost, which is a standalone quest. It does have an Epic version.
Yeah, and I love this quest. When it came out, we ran it. We had such a blast. I mean, it is a tad bit longer. You do have a lot if you want to get everything in the quest. Go through every level, front to back. It is a little bit of a longer quest, but I really like this quest a lot.
It's a good pen and paper feel to it.
Yep,
Really
absolutely.
I haven't run it a lot. For me, it would be I haven't actually run it on Heroic, but I don't really have any qualms about running it on either one. Again, I'm probably gonna run Giant Hold.
Yeah.
I don't need it to get through these levels. That's really what it comes down to for me.
No, but if you're looking for a good quest to do for an evening, my first run through it, I got a Whirling Words, so I was all set to go.
Which is probably one of the most fun rune arms in the game.
Yeah.
Yeah. So level 15. There's still a couple of packs here, or chains. Acid Wit is not, and it's only on Heroic. Actually, most of these are only on Heroic. So you have less of a problem there. Acid Wit and Delirium are both kind of in the same area.
Right.
Unlike the other Delirium quest, this Delirium is a standalone. At least I'm pretty sure it's a standalone. I don't remember. Yeah, there's nothing else that really goes with it. Those are both good quests on Heroic. They're fun. Well, Acid Wit can be a little tedious because it's kind of the same thing, just different directions of caverns.
Yeah, and with Acid Wit, be careful, because if you don't get a couple of the elementals in the beginning, then when you get to the end and you're short and you got to run all the way back, well, things respawn. So you got to be careful, because that will be a pain in the ass every time.
Yeah. Delirium is a fun quest, though. It's a drinking contest with beholders that starts the quest.
Yeah, and you can't go wrong there. And yeah, anything fun with a beholder, that made for a lot of fun screenshots for our group.
Yeah, so that's a really and that it just has a different feel, and it's a lot of fun. It's like the other Delirium quests. If you run one, you kind of understand that what you're getting in for is going to be an abnormal quest experience, and a little silly, which is a lot of fun. It really breaks up what's kind of going on there too. The other thing that's in here is the Disciples of Char chain. So there's 3 of these: Disciples of Char, Shadow of Doubt, and what's the other one? Escape Plan. There it is.
Yep.
And these ones, I actually really like these. Disciples of Char is a little bit longer, but it's not too bad. But Escape Plan and Shadow of a Doubt, especially Shadow of a Doubt, is actually one that I'll chain farm as well.
Yeah. Oh, go ahead.
I kind of have this general plan because, again, trying to save as many. If I'm going to be spending a lot of time in epics, or I'm going to quote park this character in epics, I really try to avoid as many of those quests as I can. So what tends to happen, I tend to lose a little bit of ground in 10 to 12 is where you kind of start having to do that anyways. But so there's a couple of quests where I'll tend to kind of repeat a few times on different difficulty levels, and Shadow of a Doubt is another one of those. It can be really short. You can invis run to the end, and you can do this quest in less than 5 minutes, easy.
Right.
For some of those easier difficulties, and it can. I've even done it where when I log on, I'll go run that quest once for the once per day kind of a thing. To kind of catch up a little bit.
Yeah, and it's important to note that this is the first Evening Star quest that kind of hits you, because these are over in the Forgotten Realms.
Mm-hmm.
And to do the third one, and the third one is which one?
Well,
Shadow of a Doubt.
It's actually a loop. It doesn't actually matter which one you start with. They all kind of tail into each other, so it actually creates this loop effect.
But I think you have to have the Shadowfell pack to do the last one, to do Shadow of a Doubt.
That may.
I think
I think so.
that
I think you can.
it,
I don't remember.
it might have been that way when the pack first came out. They might have changed it, but I remember because we did the first two and it's like, oh, well, we haven't bought the pack yet, so
yeah, I don't remember.
Get the pack anyway. It's a great expansion too.
Wait for after Thanksgiving or around Thanksgiving, Black Friday and stuff. There's usually some sales.
Yep, it says right here in the wiki. It says requires the Shadowfell Conspiracy expansion to do Shadow of a Doubt. So,
yeah, so those are some 3 short ones, level 15s. Again, there's no epic versions. The other ones that don't have epic version is the Missing Chain, which is Missing, Sinister Storage, Fear Factory, and In the Flesh.
And I really like Missing a lot. It's one of those quests where you got to have a good, well balanced party. You're going to eventually need a trapper. You're going to need a tank to hold off some of those hounds. And the end fight's not it's not an easy one. It's not super difficult, but it's you gotta have somebody that can take a punch.
I just like the chain in general. I find it to be a fairly interesting chain. It's got some unique mob selection. They're not terribly difficult, and you can kind of cruise through them if you get in a really good groove.
Right.
And the last fight in the flesh, I think is actually a pretty interesting end fight.
Oh,
it's a really
toughie.
good boss fight.
Yeah, yeah. In fact, if you've never done it before, I wouldn't recommend starting it on Elite, because on Elite it's a little tougher.
Yeah, if I ever say I really like a boss fight, there's something technical going on. That's what I tell them. But it has a lot of technical aspects to it and how you can damage him and get him active or vulnerable, as it were. So, right. But they're all pretty popular quests to run, and I think a lot of there's a couple other quests we haven't talked about yet, which are newer quests, and again, they comes with a little bit difference of design philosophy, but it's also I think people mostly aren't used to having those quests be in their circuit, their plan and roadmap, as it were, because they haven't been around quite as long. So people tend to run through some of the other quests.
Right. So when the Mines of Tethymir first came out, everybody was, ooh, let's do the new quest. So you grabbed your closest character, you jumped out to the realms, and you gave it a shot. And they're great quests. But you're right. Sometimes they're not on you. If you don't go out to the realms until you're in your 20s, then that's a problem.
And again, I think I haven't run them a lot. There wasn't a lot of gear that I was looking to get. They don't seem to be a horribly popular quest run. I mean, they get run, and I think the quests are pretty well done. I think just from a loot standpoint, they're not a big draw. But I think I would tend to lean towards leaving those for the epic levels. Again, like you said, you don't tend to run out to Forgotten Realms as much. There's the level that they are in Epic and Legendary, there's just not a lot of options, and there's way more options here. Like, we just went through a whole bunch that you can only run a heroic anyways, so I always start there with the ones that you can only run a heroic. That's where I always like to start. Another one that's kind of in the same boat as Tethymar is Search and Rescue, which is another, because I do like Search and Rescue. There's actually still some stuff I would like to get out of Search and Rescue.
Yeah,
although less so now that I kind of trimmed down to 5 characters instead of like 15 characters. But
yeah, we noticed that the rare drop wasn't the greatest in there either.
Yeah, that can be a little bit of a problem. But again, I think it's just one of those quests that I tend to leave for epics, and I think it has more to do with its location and the time that it came out, and just kind of my own thought process of I have this vague roadmap of where I go when I move, and that was never on it. I just never needed it. It came out after I had a roadmap, and that kind of a thing kind of played into it. So,
right.
The other quests, I think these are. We should talk about Litany, but we'll wait for a minute on that. The other 2 quests are Curse the Sky and Creeping Death, which are both in the legendary, or they tie into Legendary Shroud. You can run them on heroic or legendary, but they're the flag quests for Legendary Shroud. They tend to be, I think, on the more difficult end of things. Again, mob selection at this level. Creeping Death is oozes and kobolds, and a lot of them.
Yeah, and they suck.
The oozes are not fun.
No, and if you do, what's the broccoli club? Get a broccoli club if you're gonna do them on high level.
If you can, it'll be a little difficult to get that. You have to get that during the anniversary event.
Yep,
Curse the Sky is Abishai. So again, not my favorite mob selection for this level range. It is important to note that you can do them on heroic when you're in your epic levels and just flag for the Legendary Shroud really fast. But it's something to kind of keep in mind. The other one would be Litany of the Dead, which, if you can be flagged for it, is fantastic XP. You don't even have to do the 4 bosses. Just run and complete the quest. It used to be a very, very popular XP quest and TR quest. It has the very noticeable drawback of you need to have a completed sigil. And I think as people have kind of gone through and once Orchard became epified and people kind of maybe stopped running it as much, and people just kind of ran out of pieces, you can bank the extra pieces for future lives, but you have to complete a sigil every time. And I think that's really the thing that kills it.
Yeah. Yeah, it's not like some of the other quests where you can farm it for ingredients or farm it for certain things you need. You can do it over and over. This one was never a popular one with my group, mostly for that reason.
Yeah, if you don't have the sigil, you can't run it, and that's a pain. If you do have the sigil, by golly, run this thing. Reaper, Elite, Hard, Normal. if you know how to do it. It's, and maybe even you don't do it on Reaper, you just run it solo, because you probably won't be able to find very many friends to run it with you. But if you can, and you know how to do the puzzle, the riddle at the end, it's a great quest to run for the XP and time's sake, if you know how to do it right. But
yep.
So I think we got them all right.
Yeah, we didn't talk specifically about certain ones in the chains, but that's really this level range is really great for, if you like doing chains in parts, or if you like doing them beginning to end. We tend to do them beginning to end. That might jump us around back and forth a little bit in the quest levels, but our group is just completely in love with Giant Hole Tor. Not only for the fact that you get to go in there and thump on dragons, and there is a little bit of tactics depending on what kind of group you have, but just as a fun go in, hack and slash them up quest, I can't say enough about that quest.
Yeah, there's a lot of really fun quests in here. There's a lot of good options. You won't need all of them, probably. There's enough XP that you can kind of get through them all. Even, there's some Slayers in there. I have a tendency here to fall behind. And what I mean by that is I tend to choose to not do a lot of these quests, again, because you can do them in epics. And we'll get to this, the next one, like the 16 to 18 range, that tends to be less true. So that's why I kind of like some of the, like Siegebreaker, I might run a couple times. It's not in this level range specifically, but Framework I'll tend to run a couple of times. Shadow of Doubt I'll tend to run a couple of times. And there's another quest in the next level range.
And if you're trying to do the crafting, like to get to the crafting cauldron at the end of Siegebreaker, you will run them through a couple times, and That's another thing. There's some kind of cool items. I mean, they may not be the best in the game to come out of that chain, where you can take the two items, combine them into one with the right ingredients, and you can get some pretty kind of decent items depending on, what kind of character you have.
Yeah, but it just tends to be kind of that general plan that I have of kind of trying to maximize my XP for later.
Mm-hmm.
Which sometimes means I end up not running a character for a couple of days because I can't find people doing the right thing. But I'm less concerned about it these days. But it is kind of something that I do like. There's more. Like again, we'll talk about these in the coming shows and stuff in weeks. We start thinking about Veil and Inspired Quarter, and there are no epic versions of those. Shavrath. So there's plenty of quests. If you want to avoid all of the quests that you can run an epic and save them for later, you can do that. It just means you're gonna from about 10 to 16, you're gonna fall behind a little bit in terms of where you think you might want to be normally in banking quests and stuff like that. So, because especially at level 14, there's only the Tower of Frost, or no, the Tower of Frost. All of the level 14 quests you can run in heroic or in epics. So.
Right.
Which is probably why I tend to even then want a couple of these quests. So, but it's a fun. This is a fun level range. There's a lot of fun quests. There's a lot of good packs to choose from. Hopefully, we gave you an idea of which quests maybe packs you don't necessarily want to get if you don't really care about it.
And remember, like for Giant Hold. So as soon as you hit level 10, you can go out there, but the quests really are a little bit tougher than that. So they kind of expect you to maybe do the Slayer area a little bit first. But if you have to buy the pack, then wait till level 13.
And it's worth noting too, if we talked about how Coin Lord Favor for the backpack space is king. If you need a class portable hull, get some Agents of Argonus in Favor, and you'll get one.
Yep.
So.
Yep.
Right. Anything else you want to say before we jump into game news?
No, let's do it.
Alrighty then. So game news, we did get an update. Well, we got a patch. Update 36, patch 4. Mostly to fix some stuff. Cleric War Domain now properly grants proficiency with exotic weapons. Yay! I know there were a lot. That was kind of a big part of that, right? So.
Yeah, and it threw me for a loop because I did do a test cleric on it, but it worked, but it still showed it, and the visual was wrong.
Yeah. Let's see, other things. Primal Adversaries balance tax works properly when dual wielding daggers with Vistani. That's kind of nice. Night Revels. Some ingredients no longer there's a typo here. Some ingredients no longer incorrectly stated they expired at the end of 2016. I thought that was hilarious.
Yeah, it's somebody falling asleep at the switch.
I got my new candy, and it expired at the end of 2016, which they didn't, for one. They only just expired in 3/4 of the way through 2017. That was pretty funny. I don't know what they say now. I didn't look.
Yeah, I haven't bought any yet, so I'm not sure.
I mean, I got the two candies that I like to use. So, Resurrection Chamber. The rewards have been adjusted so the challenge now grants all night rolls ingredients upon completion. I think that's a much better choice. And I kind of hope they keep doing that. Unless you're gonna give us 4 new ones, so that one of each, like one dropping of each. I'd rather if you're only up to 1 or 2 a year, just have them drop all of them. You can adjust the numbers for time. That's fine. They fixed. They added a rest shrine. And they kind of did some stuff there. Let's see. Reapers will no longer spawn in the Giant Hold Tour optional dragon and giant boss fights. See, that's one of those notes that you read and you can't help but laugh.
See, and we never bumped into that, so I can't even comment on it.
Sure, but I think you can just kind of see that, right? It's like,
oh yeah.
That would be difficult to deal with.
Yeah.
They also correct an issue where certain abilities were leaving detection objects in an instance and not decaying properly. I'm not exactly even sure what that means, but
I think No, I know that there's an issue with effects like lava and acid and stuff like that's actually staying on a character until you log out. But I don't think that's what this is.
Yeah, I don't know.
No.
There's probably a performance issue.
Ah,
Let's see. They did some stuff with ASMR and kind of fixed a bunch of stuff, or added a few little things, some melee power, that kind of stuff. Also coming out, there are Mists of Ravenloft wallpapers. If you would like to get a Mists of Ravenloft wallpaper,
I have it on my phone and my computer. It is so awesome.
oh, there you go.
It's a redo of the old Clyde Caldwell cover from I6.
I don't even know what that means, but cool.
The classic Strahd on the balcony painting.
Titan is saying the detections are for the mobs that spawn. Sure. It all at a certain point it all becomes googly computer speak for me. So, the other thing that I'm gonna see here. So, again, we're gonna in a couple weeks we're gonna have a show where we're gonna really dive into Ravenloft pre-purchase and kind of talk about what you might want to consider in buying. However, I did create a breakdown of price points and kind of the goal is basically take the different packs or different bundles that you can buy and break it down at how many points per dollar you're getting. So I have these very lovely charts. I don't even tables. I think is a better word of saying it. They're not graphed or anything like that. And I have a pretty nice long crunchy post on this. I put it on the forums. The formatting works better on the DDOCast site, so I'm going to link to that. But it kind of breaks it down. There's some assumptions, some things to know about it. There's some assumptions made about how much certain things cost, like the cosmetic outfits and the cosmetic pets. I kind of looked at what's available in the store and kind of
Right.
Made some determinations about that. I also broke these down into if you're a VIP or not a VIP, because if you're a VIP, how much is 30 days VIP or 60 days VIP worth? So if you're not a VIP, I just took a 30-day VIP pass is $15. There's no 60-day VIP pass. There's a 90-day VIP pass, which is less than 30 days. So I used that for the 60-day pricing, and then subtracted that from how much you're paying, and then that gives you a difference in cost, and then break that down into points per dollar. I also took out the ASMR. So in the VIP tables, I took out ASMR because they get that for free anyways. I also assumed that you were paying the $9.99 price for the VIP, which I think is the lowest one that you could do or could possibly have. So, and then I took all that and crunched it down. Gives you points per dollar. I assumed 5 characters, mostly because of the racial enhancement tome. So I had to assume a price, and kind of assume a price, and then assume a number of characters. And I kind of arbitrarily chose 5, not based on how many I have, but just kind of it seemed like a good number to kind of go for. But I also have if you have more characters, I gave you information how to calculate, add that in. So
Yeah, and I'm so glad you did this, because this really shows that because there's been a few people that have said, hey, these prices are really high, and I mean, I disagree for what you were getting. I mean, for me, it's more of a content issue than a well, what am I getting for all this? Am I getting my money's worth? Well, this is a great breakdown to show that, hey, you know what? You really are getting your money's worth for what they're charging.
yeah, I don't know if I'd reach that conclusion. So just to kind of give, so here's some of the generic numbers. Again, I don't want to get into a discussion of which one to get. We're going to save that for a couple of weeks. But so if you're free to play or premium, the lowest pack gets you about 110 points per dollar. The collector's edition gets you 126. The Ultimate Fan Bundle gets you around 176 points per dollar. Again, assuming 5 characters, so 5 racial AP tomes, you get more. You get about another 6 points per dollar for the action point tomes. Assuming an action point tome costs the same as a tome of Fate, it seemed like a good thing to use as a baseline. So again, there's a lot of assumptions being made here on what things cost.
Yeah.
For VIP, it actually goes down because you're not getting ASMR because you already have that. So it goes down to 75 points per dollar for the standard, 97 points for the collectors, and 147.5 points for the Ultimate Fan Bundle. If you look at, so I redid my tables from Shadowfell to kind of follow the same rules, same pricing, same number of characters, and to give it, and there's no real difference between VIP Premium because there's nothing that you didn't get or would have gotten, kind of a thing. And it came out to 286 points per dollar, so significantly. That was for the collector's edition, the one that cost $50. So that was significantly higher point per dollar value. The other thing other thing that really kind of makes it even worse from how much are we paying for Ravenloft perspective is the because Shadowfell is not actually available for points. It's not actually included in that point value. So it's 286 points per dollar plus the Shadowfell content. So I think people have a pretty valid argument when they say that Ravenloft is costing more than the previous expansions. I couldn't find my tables from Menace the Underdark, probably because I lost them when I lost some files. But
yeah. I mean, I see where you're going. I mean, I guess for me, you're talking about Standing Stone Games. It's a newer company. It's not Turbine. Sure. It's not supported by Warner Brothers anymore. To me, I don't know. For me, it was worth it. But I'm a classic D&D gamer. I love the fact that they're bringing Ravenloft into this so much that for me, it's not as big a deal.
And here's what I don't want people to take these numbers and do either. Like, don't go bashing SSG, right? I did these to kind of give people an idea of what they're getting and kind of help people make decisions. You do still have to make that decision. Is this worth it for you, right? And like at first glance, I have a little conclusion section that basically says that at first glance, Shadowfell clearly was a better value. But there's some things to keep in mind here. One is when I did the numbers for Ravenloft, I didn't take into account the fact that you get a cosmetic armor and hat on every character. The stuff you got from Shadowfell, you got a copy of. So if you wanted to change it on the different characters, you'd have to move it around. This one, you can get it on all your characters. So I didn't multiply that by 5 for each character.
Right.
So there's some stuff there. It doesn't mean that these are bound to character, but you could outfit all of your characters with this one without having to do any of that hassle. There's also, you have to consider that a lot of the stuff that is actually some quick math here, about 5,000 points worth of that Shadowfell stuff. I think you could only get if you pre-purchased. Like, you can't get that anymore.
Correct. That is correct.
So, and that skews that number again. Now, I left that part as part of the calculation because when you're talking about comparing the pre-purchase, that's a thing. But one of the things I tried to point out was all of Ravenloft will be available later. It will always be available. There's nothing that you only get for pre-purchase. So I think it's somewhat reasonable to expect that we would get fewer points per dollar. Also, if you compare it to how many, like if you bought the $200 point bundle, you get, assuming there's no bonuses, you get 115 points per dollar. And my post has a reference to the DDO wiki page, which shows you how many points you can buy for how many dollars and breaks that down and stuff like that. So if you start looking at that chart, it actually is pretty comparable. You are still getting more points per dollar and spending less money to do it.
Right.
So,
And that's kind of the direction I was looking at it, because some of there's just so much that's included in this when you kind of compared it to what you get before. And we still haven't seen the quests yet.
Sure, yeah.
I mean, we still haven't seen everything that's still to come. And maybe that's the telltale for people, right? So when everything gets published, when it's out there to read and view and whatever, then they can come through and say, okay, I only need the basic $39 pack. Or they can come through and say, hey, you know what? I saw a video of some guy in the Stani Knife Fighter outfit. I really want that. And then, hey, whatever works for you. But if you want to support Standing Stone Games in DDO, then do it in a way that's most comfortable for you.
Yeah. And there's some other things that's really important to note about this too is like again, if it's Stani Knife Fighter, I kind of assume that its price would be the same as Harper Agent. Some of this stuff you're only going to be able to get from this, right?
Mm-hmm.
You're not. There is no way that they're going to have the Barovian Nurser Cat or the Vampire Hunter outfits or the Raven and Black Cat available individually, right? They're only going to be part of this. I mean, they might, but I highly doubt it.
Yeah.
There's also the 10 slots of shared storage, which you will probably only get from this. Now, I wouldn't say spend $180 just for those 10 slots. But the other thing that's really nice with the chart that I have is you can look at all of the things and what each of them individually costs. So you can do, like, if there's things that don't matter to you, like if you don't care about the cosmetics,
right. If your storage is completely full already, or you don't play iconics, or you don't care for pets, then obviously your choice is going to be changed based on that. Everybody's going to be different.
Yeah. And one final note too is, as Titan just pointed out, one thing I did not put in here was the weapon arm cosmetic, so I need to recalculate for that. Oops. Yeah, I kind of rushed putting this together, so there might be some more errors, but I'll update it as I need to. So I'll update it for the weapon R's, which might make it a little bit better. But it at least gives you an idea of kind of what you're spending, and if you get to a point like I don't care about the aristocrat outfit or the cosmetic outfits or cosmetic pets, but I want to get the iconic hero or some of this other stuff. You can start to look at, okay, how much you kind of recalculate for yourself. How much do you actually want to spend? Does it, if you don't care about the cosmetics, then the Ultimate Fan Bundle probably isn't for you, because you end up spending, another $50 to get 10 shared slots of storage, racial enhancement tomes, and the iconic hero and the legendary Scarecrow. So there's a lot of. It's not a straight comparison, right? I'm not trying to say you can look at Shadowfell and this and say Shadowfell looked like it was a lot better deal. Yes, but there's a lot of other things you need to consider with that. So it's not a straight easy comparison. But I hope this helps people kind of make some of those decisions for themselves. So.
Yeah, and like I said, I'm glad you did this, because this will help people make decisions. This is awesome.
Yep. The bonus days for the week through today, 10% Buddy Weekend. Yeehaw. So go get some extra XP. The sales for the week are through November 2nd. Honor your guild, so you get 25% off of Astral Shards, Guild Renown Elixirs, 50% off of Guild Charters, and Guild Airship Beacons. You can also get a Lasting Potion of Jumping, plus 20. You get 5 of those with the code Leaping Fun. Yay for vanity codes. So, community news. The 256th Chronicle, Voodoo Spice Brings the Dance. He looked at the dances for ASMR for both the male and female characters and made a video of that. Which I have to say, the female dances look great. I'm not sold on the male dances.
I haven't seen the male one yet.
Check out the video. It's a pretty good one. They're also hosting a Halloween, High Lords of Malkair, which is Voodoo's guild. They're hosting a Halloween event on Sorlona. It's usually a lot of fun. There's a lot of stuff going on. There's trick-or-treating, which I don't actually know how they do that, but they do trick or treating. They have trivia, costume contests. It's a deal. So that'll be fun. Enrique asked who controls the Night Revels. Nerdarchie delved into the Ravenloft pre-purchase for an in-depth look. So there's another person's information if you want to help figure out what you want to buy. The guild for the week, Dragonlance Heroes, are a Solona-based guild of mature adults looking for other players who are over the age of 18. This guild seeks people looking to grow with them. You can find Burrell in-game to learn more. The comment for the week, if you wore armor made of pumpkins, what would its stats be?
Squishy.
I would say terrible and smelly. Although, look, magic can do a lot of wonders. I don't know, if you wore armor made of pumpkins, like maybe it's magical and turns into this really beautiful armor, and then at the stroke of midnight, it goes back to being a pumpkin.
Pumpkin, right.
And, we got a shout out for our episode last week talking about we talked about some Ravenloft stuff. We spent some time I'm trying to think of a good word for this. Having some fun with what could VIP Plus look like was kind of the idea. It was just kind of, this will be a fun show. And we'll talk about some comments from listeners as well. DDO Players News was joined by Bonnie Bew, Saba Jade and Mithri. Welcome back, Bonnie. Bachelagor played Night Revels, even runs House K, Lobby quests, and more. Strimtom made a new build on his stream. A very bad guild enjoyed Cake. Gaming SF looked at backing up and organizing your screenshots. Mickey wrote about her latest rating. And T and Blade created a walkthrough for the Cerulean Hills. And if you want to see what Cordovan can do on a plus admin character during downtime, you can check out the weekly Wednesday lunchtime live stream from before. Let's see. Going back to the Halloween thing on Solona by the Howlers of Malkir. So it's 9 p.m. Eastern on Halloween night in the Solana Harbor, beginning at the upper mailbox. So I'll link to where you can get more information about that as well. DDOCast news. So DDOCast, we are going, I think we're going to do Night Revels this week.
I'm up for it.
Hopefully everyone will have some keys for that. But so we're going to do that this week, and then we're going to take a break. This season has it'll be the 30th episode of the season, and we had a couple weeks out. So we're going to take a break. We'll be back in January to do some more fun stuff. We're kind of figuring out what we're going to do, but I think we're going to start at level 15. We're picking it back up at level 15. And we might do some fun stuff with that.
Yeah.
We'll see where that goes, but so that's kind of what we're planning on doing next. But we'll be back. So we're gonna take the holidays off. Is kind of the idea.
And if you watch our last video, you can see how to 6-man the Demon Queen
3 times.
3 times.
Well, 2 times how not to
3.
do it. 2 times how not to do the 6-man Demon Queen, and 1 time to see how much of a difference tactics can make in what you're doing.
Exactly.
All right. Lightning Post. Had a couple of things that players wrote in. The first one was actually about leveling from 10 to 12. From Ambersign. Do you really need giants to break barriers for you in Prey of the Hunter? He's heard it's time, and he's heard that the giants have to break the ice walls for he hasn't been able to figure it out. He also did run. He ran Trials of Archon since the patch, and it was much easier. The nerf to Abishai appears to have been significant. That's good news. In regards to Prey on the Hunter, no. The answer is you do not need giants to do it for you. That's probably the most common way to do it. You can use a fireball or like a rune arm with a fire blast. Will break some of the doors if you place it right. Some of them are actually. There's one that's actually based on how it was based on you killing wolves. So it's a little bit different.
That's another quest I haven't done in a really long time.
Yeah, but you don't have to use giants. It's just most people don't bring fireballs around to it. He also wrote in about VIP Plus. He said he thinks it's a concept that is dreaming about things that will never happen. Maybe. But that wasn't the point. We were having some fun. Here's something that if he was included, he might consider paying for. His characters have every quest already accepted upon leaving a quest or raid. They are automatically turned in, so he has the reward list shown to him upon quest exit, and then accepted again. Accepts, of course, quests on a timer, which will be accepted again as soon as that timer expires. It's a quality of life improvement, which might be worth paying for as long as it was bundled with a pile of other quality of life improvements. Yeah, that's I kind of like that idea. He also says not being able to make permanent purchase of anything that VIP provides only temporarily is kind of a problem and a disincentive for him for having a VIP subscription, which I can understand. It would be nice if you were VIP to, over time, be able to buy quests on sale if you wanted to, so that when you weren't a VIP, you could kind of have that as your plan. But
yeah, some kind of mechanic. I mean, there's a lot of us who've been VIPs for 10 or more years.
Yeah. Let's see. Livmo says for every $1 you spend in a game, you get a raid boss plushie. Collect them all. He's not really into subscriptions, but a different raid boss plushie per year for VIP would be fantastic. An added bonus to the package. Though he's also saying, or maybe a real life bag of dice. That's a little more expensive and difficult to manage.
Yeah. Yeah, physical for a computer company to do something that's actually physical that they have to mail to you. Yeah, that might be a little. Might be a little tough to swallow.
Yeah, so that's that might be a little hard to do. But a pet every year, yeah, can fit into some of the stuff we were talking about. Marriott on Solona says he thinks a really good idea for VIP Plus would be to allow players to travel directly to all quests and raid entrances, perhaps by double clicking on the adventure compendium. It also mean no flagging. I don't know if I'm behind the no flagging part, but the shorter travel time, which they were kind of working on.
Yeah, and that's something I thought that they were kind of like a place you could go to that would just take you to whatever quest you wanted. That sounds like more of an admin thing than a player thing. Now that you think about it.
Yeah, I mean I think the big problem is Ravenloft right now. Like they were working on it, and then they got a little bit of work done on it, and I think they had to focus on Ravenloft. So,
yeah,
I think that's kind of the big thing there. Let's see, Minion of Grumsh said some thoughts for VIP concept. Then bringing it, he had no idea how much more it would cost compared to current VIP. Yeah, we don't either. He said more points per month. A use or lose stipend of points can be used for certain store items. That could be interesting. Access to a teleport style item that can take you to different places. Access to a portable hole style area that has vendors that sell pretty much everything that can be sold in game. Yeah, that'd be kind of neat.
Yeah, that is a difficult thing sometimes for beginning players. Well, where do I buy this? Where do I get this? Where do I get curse potions? Where do I get haste potions? There is the DDO wiki, but sometimes it'd be easier if they were all in one place in the game.
This one I do like a lot. Use or lose number of free guest passes in the store. That's kind of neat. That would be kind of interesting thing. An additional weekly sale item. Passive bonus to treasure power, which we kind of talked about. Stacks with their bonuses. Platinum seal hirelings that are a little bit better than their counterparts. One true reincarnation per account per month. No heart needed. And unlimited plus 0 lesser reincarnations. No heart needed. Also a free feat swap per account per week. And 2 free silver rolls per day and 2 gold rolls per week. That's probably a better way of doing the rolling. I like the idea of there being a bigger roll, but yeah, it's probably a better way than we were talking about. And also, first completion of a quest line produces a special reward list if applicable. That would probably I like that idea, but I think that's a lot more work, unfortunately. But I like a lot of his ideas. A lot of ideas there. This is why we did this, because we get a lot of ideas and some other things that people might be interested in. Don said what he would like to be all access to expansions right away with exclusive items purchasable. So as a super VIP, he gets Ravenloft when it comes out without having to buy it. but cosmetics and hirelings he'd have to spend extra for. Also, he would like to access the gold hirelings at vendor in game for plat, just like the regular ones. Bonus commendations might be nice as a monthly option, perhaps. Also, maybe convenience things like res cakes, airship beacons as bonus items per month, or purchasable with plat. Some interesting ideas there.
I like the gold hireling idea.
Yeah. MK Trail said permanent. He liked the idea of starting at level 4 when you TR. Waterworks expecting and Reaper enhancements available immediately. Yeah, that'd be kind of nice. And Christopher says VIP taking veteran status into effect would be awesome. Another idea is maybe getting commendations monthly, quarterly, or yearly. I think he's specifically talking about the Villager and Purple Dragonite combinations. Maybe Valor or Heroism quarterly or semi-yearly. As for the most famous Barovian band, how can you not go with the Grateful Dead?
That is a good one.
But they're not from Barovia, are they?
Nah, eventually you're all from Barovia.
Okay. Sure. Our question for the week comes from Strikeout on Thelanis. Do you think iconics are something that should be further developed?
I mean, that's a hard one. I don't think everybody uses iconics. I think they're cool, especially if you don't start them right at 15, you customize them. But I mean, I guess it would depend on how much work they got to do to create one.
I mean, my general answer would be yes. I think it'd be awesome if every race had an iconic version. But my yes comes with the caveat of yes without impacting content.
Yeah, well, that's kind of where I was going. I mean, obviously they took a lot of time and effort to put in the ASMR to combine it with Ravenloft, and that's cool. But to have one come out every update or some, even every race, maybe eventually, but I don't know.
Yeah, it would be a nice thing to have. I think it would be kind of fun to have those things. I'm also kind of okay with it being some of the more special. I was really disappointed that they didn't do it for a Dragonborn.
Yes,
that was disappointing.
Here.
Yep. And I think it had to do more with time than anything else. Especially since we kind of have a little bit more of an idea of how long they've been working on Ravenloft, which is a really long time.
It's at least a year.
Yeah. So I think it's been impacting a lot of other things that they've been doing. So hopefully after Ravenloft, and you can kind of presume that they were probably doing a similar thing with Mordor, with Lord of the Rings. So hopefully once those two expansions are done, it'll free up a little bit more time. They can kind of catch up on some of these other things. I would be a little bit surprised if they added iconics to existing races, just because it's a lot more work. When they've said when they're making a new race, making an iconic version is not much more work,
right?
Than what they're already doing.
Yeah, the one that comes to mind for me would be the Tiefling Warlock.
Yeah, I think just in general, it would be really nice to have each race and each class represented in iconic heroes. I don't know if we'll ever get there. I would kind of be surprised if we did, but it would be neat. So, all right, should we close out the show?
Yeah, I think we had a lot of good info for everybody. I hope we did.
Hopefully, maybe even a little bit of bad info too. No, that's not be good. Anything you want to plug here?
Yeah, so I was up pretty late last night watching the second season of Stranger Things. If you're not watching this show and you're a D&D fan, you're missing out. Take the time and check this show out if you haven't, because it's for a D&D geek, especially for someone who started playing back in the 80s, this show is spectacular. I love it. I can't recommend it enough.
So thanks for listening to the show. Thanks to Evilbeeker for joining me very reliably for this series. It's been great having a constant voice in addition to my own in this series. And thanks to all the other contributors for DDOCast, and to Standing Stone Games and Wizards of the Coast, and to Cyber for hosting the podcast. If you'd like to support the show, you can visit our website, ddocast.com, or you can support us on Patreon. All that money goes straight into prizes and stuff. It's not being used for any financial benefit on my own part. That's where all the prizes for the scavenger hunt I did this summer came from. So if you'd like to see more prizes or help support the show, feel free to help in that capacity. You can hit us up at DDOCast.com for show notes, MP3s, our calendar, previous shows, swag, and other fun stuff. If you want to be part of the show, or if you have a comment on this episode, maybe a question you'd like to hear us answer, or a topic you'd like to hear us debate a little bit, or if you just want to say hi, you can leave us a comment, or you can email me at ddocast@gmail.com. You can also find us on social media and follow us for the latest cast updates. Our closing tip for the week comes from Asheris on Kyber. Healing Amp is your friend. Amen.
Amen.
So until next time, may all your attack rolls be crits, all your chest level appropriate, have fun, and don't forget to gather for buffs.